What's up, Spartan fans, Mountain West fans, and all those tuning in around the college basketball space, wherever you may be? I'm Nick Urias, tuning in live from the Save Mart Center as San Jose State defeat the Fresno State Bulldogs 94-91 in double overtime. We got Jonathan Conos, who's going to be joining us very shortly here. And wow, what a game. I mean, let's just start out there. I mean, Jonathan's going to come out and give his thoughts on probably, I think, safe to say, the craziest game of the year. I think you could very much argue the wackiest game in the Mountain West thus far. I mean, we could have that argument, Jonathan. I mean, we'll slide you in here in a minute, but just my goodness, what a game. I mean, between San Jose State having themselves, pretty much themselves deep in the water, down 67-60 with 40 seconds to go in regulation. The fact that they were able to force overtime in this game, several massive three-pointers from Latrell Davis, Will McClendon, the Josh Aduje steal and one was just incredible. And the fact that the Spartans got this one in overtime was pretty remarkable. So Jonathan, let's just go ahead and slide you in here, man, because what a game that we had here in Fresno in the Central Valley. I mean, let's backtrack a little bit because San Jose State, they led for over 31 minutes. They controlled the game in regulation. I mean, Fresno kind of rolled out their funky zone. I mean, San Jose State, I mean, with that zone defense, I was telling you during the game, like it was just amazing because they were daring the Spartans to shoot, and we know San Jose State is more than capable of making their open threes, like pretty much any college basketball team out there. And it was amazing because they just kept shooting them and shooting them and shooting them. They had the whole Rob Viola foul trouble fiasco, which was pretty much something that the coaching staff was trying to manage all game long. And then they had the Donovan Yap, 2 quick early fouls. Jermaine Washington had to come in like 4 minutes into the game. I mean, just your thoughts on just regulation before we even get to overtime, because overtime is just a mess of its own that we have to clean up.
Well, one of the things I wasn't expecting them to do, and I understand they were playing zone, was shoot a bunch of threes. I mean, overall in the game, they shot 36 threes, which is crazy, but they must have shot up to 20, 25 before regulation even ended. So I understand kind of shooting over the zone, but man, I was appalled by that. And as well as Robert Viola's play, he fouled out with in the fourth quarter, second half, and he didn't play any OT. Nick, they used Chol Muriel, probably the game of his life, coming into OT, closing things out here. Robert Viola, I was highlighting him as a player of the game because, Fresno State, Donovan Yap, and him coming back here, and they were able to do their thing here. But, man, everybody else kind of stepped up. Josh Aduje, Will McClendon, Donovan Yap. It was really what you would call a complete team effort. I mean, they got out-rebounded 49-42, and it all came down to the hustle plays. And, Nick, I'm going to say it, just flat-out luck at the end of the day. I mean, the game went to double overtime. There was a couple of a 5-point play at one point in the first overtime where it kind of looked like SJSU had it in the bag, and Latrell Davis couldn't see the inbound from Donovan Yap, and all of a sudden that turned into a 3-point play for Fresno State, and we had a brand new game. So, man, I'm honestly speechless. One of the greatest games I've seen, and Nick, I wasn't expecting one of the best games in the Mountain West to come from the 9th and 10th seed in the conference. But hey, guess what? It's what happened, and the 5 people here at Save Mart Center got to treat what happened here, because this was a great game, and unfortunately for them, the Spartans come out on top in their first win at Save Mart since 2009.
Yeah, I mean, so let's start out with the top performers of this game. Josh Aduje really was the engine to this offense, which I think is just starting to become more of a developing story. I think as we get closer to March, Jonathan, I think he's going to have to be the guy that keeps going. I mean, Will McClendon, to start out the games has scuffled a little bit, more, I would say more so than what we've been accustomed to. And, Josh was the guy that had, 16 points in this. I got really worried, and I know you did too, when he took that massive fall, because, I mean, when the fall that he took, that one was right in front of us here, right in front of us on the baseline, and when he took a fall like that, you're just, I imagine Spartan fans and, I mean, even fans around the Mountain West are just holding their breath because, when you lose the number 6 player in scoring in points per game in the Mountain West, I mean, that's a guy that you want on the floor. It doesn't matter who you're rooting for. So, I mean, in a sense, that was pretty remarkable. The fact that, I mean, Coach Miles came over here, Zach Sherwood, the medical professional for SJSU, came over and checked on Josh. And the fact that, he got help to the sidelines, went right over to the red carpet here right near the tunnel, and then literally was able to shoot his free throws after like what I think it was a timeout or in between that. And the fact that he was able to, just he didn't miss any time, which I thought was pretty crazy because the thud was loud. I mean, it didn't look good. He was trying to go in for a fast break, a posterizing slam over Fresno State Bulldog center Morsek. And the fact that he was able to, just come out in one piece and not miss any time, was a good sign, for how this game flowed for SJSU. But I mean, San Jose State, they got some big contributing factors from, Josh Aduje, like we said, the engine to the offense to start. Latrell Davis, absolutely incredible. Again, a new career high for Latrell. 30 points, 11 for 18 shooting, 6 for 11 from beyond the arc. And we talked about during the pregame, like how he's only missed 8 shots the last 3 games, which is just otherworldly. And, for San Jose State, I mean, Jonathan, we kind of talked about it that, in a sense, the Spartans have themselves a better roster, but we knew that this was a house of horrors, for SJSU. So we knew the game wasn't going to be easy, obviously. But I mean, the fact that, when you see Rob Viola in foul trouble, and then all of a sudden you have to get 31 minutes out of Chol Mariel when it's all said and done, and even he fouled out. I mean, let's give some credit here to the Bulldogs because, man, this is one of the more explosive box scores that we've had all year. I mean, on top of what Davis and Aduje were able to do with 30 burgers Simone, Donovan Yap, we'll talk about him. It was a big game for him. Will McClendon had 10 points, but Fresno State got some big time contributors from Zion Collins, 22 points, Jalen Weaver, which I thought was a casual, 23 from him. And then they got, Brian Amunike, who was kind of the guy, the 6th man, who I think is really starting to emerge for these Bulldogs in a sense. Like, this is back-to-back games for them. I mean, the fact that he's only a freshman and he's over here dropping 19 in a game that went to double overtime. I mean, SJSU really had no answer for him. And, he was the kind of the engine to, Fresno State's offense in the second half. But what really shocked me in this game was, we knew that Fresno State, like we talked about, we gave the scouting report on them that they're gonna drive and try to draw fouls, but I didn't think that they were going to be successful as much as they were. Getting into Robbie V in foul trouble. I mean, Chol eventually fouled out in double overtime, but the success of their offense was was something that actually really surprised me a little bit. I just want to get your thoughts on the Fresno State offensive outbursts.
Yeah, and just to bounce off your point of Amunike, he had a career high 16 points in that last game against Boise State. And obviously this is a closer game for him, so it probably means a lot more. But it kind of looked like they were going to the freshman at times when they needed him most. I mean, he was being subbed in and subbed out for Collins and Weaver. But, hey, some of the guys that we highlighted, kind of like Collins and Weaver, those guys are our players of the game for Fresno State, really did their thing and stepped up. Unfortunately, it was just a game that went to overtime for them. And one of the guys I highlighted was Elijah Price, just to start this game, to go alongside. He's going to be guarding Robert Viola and Chol Mariel, and he was hanging on 4 fouls, man. Like after the game regulation ended, he basically stayed until the last minute or two of double or the second overtime, and he was playing just with last shred, and he was still able to get some good plus minus on the boards, practically serving as the other big man with Sec, but they weren't using him as much because it was just a matchup problem. So Price, man, lengthy, he's going to be a dangerous player for Fresno State for years to come if they can hang on to him. I like his upside. I like the upside of what I've seen from Fresno here. I mean, this is their third overtime game in Mountain West. So, with Nevada, Colorado State, and now San Jose State, this one might sting a little more because it's the rivalry game. But hey, we saw a crazy game, and don't put your head too low, because Fresno State, I mean, they can get their get back the last game of the season in another rivalry game in San Jose. So, still the story isn't over yet for this rivalry.
Yeah, and I think it's even, just more fitting that it's the final regular season game of the year, right? At home, the final home regular season game. So you're gonna have senior night. It's gonna be, all of those guys. I mean, we talk. I asked you with the quick, I asked you the quick hitter at the pregame, and it was Steven Vasquez gonna get in, and of course he got in, but then he hit a three. And these fans that were sitting to our right were, they were jawing their mouths quite a bit. I mean, this was a show. I mean, it's amazing when you sit at the media table how much you can hear. Usually we're calling games, but we weren't calling this game, so we really got to really hear. You can't really hear too much with the headsets. It's almost like you're on noise cancellation mode. But wow. I mean, we got ourselves a couple good laughs there between the Bulldog fans and the officials. That's for sure. I mean, to me, some of the crazier plays that I think that we've had all year. I mean, just kind of like, dare I say, the Shackton of fool type plays, right? I mean, so with the one in particular that really, just was like, wow, like is it like there was like about like, are we really going through this? Yeah, there was about 5 of them, but the one to me on the San Jose State side was when they were up 3 in the first overtime, and Donovan Yap is coming off like they had a made basket. Fresno State, they bring it up to the front court. Latrell Davis doesn't see the pass. Trying to get it, pushing it to the front court, like just the first pass of the possession. And the fact that, Latrell tries to save it, they turn it over, and then it turns into an and one for I think Crawford it was. And then of course he hits the and one free throw, and then we go to over the double OT from there. I mean, that one was pretty wacky. I think just the 7-0 run at the end, just the collection of plays that SJSU made, and just Fresno State kind of being allergic to scoring there at the end of regulation. I mean, San Jose State went on their own scoring drought in this game, to end the first half. And I looked at you and I said, wow, it was amazing because all the media timeouts came at the right time. I felt like, the halftime came perfectly for the Spartans, in a way. Like, they need a regroup. The fact that they were up 31-29 at halftime was pretty remarkable. The way, things were going, and, just their offense looked like it was stuck on neutral. I mean, there was so many plays in this game where you're like, what? Like, is this really happening? And the crazy thing, it did. SJSU was up like 5 or 6 in the first overtime, and then they blew the lead and to get it to double overtime. But when it mattered most, I mean, Fresno was playing, lived and died by their zone. They were playing that 2-3 zone with a combination of the matchup zone, and it came down to just the Spartans hitting more threes than them. It was really that simple, and the 3-point numbers are jumping off the page right now. San Jose State made 14 threes to Fresno State's 5 made threes. Jonathan, I'm going to pass the baton back to you. I mean, you could build off what I said there, but like the 3-point numbers, as much as, the shot selection hurt the Spartans, it ultimately came back, to win them the game, especially in those overtimes, and obviously in regulation to crawl back late.
Yeah, I think I was making comments to you that it was more so hurting them in regulation, because it kind of just seemed like they were chucking up threes as a way to get around the zone. They were kind of passing up on some lanes, maybe just so they can stick to their game plan and shoot over it. But overall, I guess it did work out. 36 threes to me is kind of astronomical compared to what Fresno State's 15, though. So these guys are really kind of living and dying by the three. And thankfully, it didn't really come back to bite them. San Jose State has some shooters on the team, whether it's McClendon, Latrell Davis, a casual 30, 6 for 11 from beyond the arc. He hit some of those clutch ones from the corner too, and a couple of those were also some scary ones. So at the end of the day, they lived and died by it, and thankfully they got it. But hey, how about as well just being able to just defend the ball as well, and defend without fouling it towards the end of the game too, because Fresno State for almost every single the end of the game, end of regulation, end of OT, and end of double overtime had the possession for each one of those halves, and it was so scary for San Jose State because they had to come up with the stop. And at the end of the the game, like you said, Cholmeriel and Viola were gone, so you had a 5-guard lineup trying to get the probably one of the better defensive stops of the year, and they did it. And they almost made it in the last. They had a good look. Who was it who took the last shot? Oh, Zion Collins took the last shot. 22 points, and he was already 1 for 3 from beyond the arc. So that was a scary look. And shout out to this defense, because we mentioned it before. They've been playing like top-notch defense up until this point, and Donovan Yap being one of those guys. And unfortunately for them, Fresno State were coming in here hitting some of their shots, but I'm impressed by the clutch defense they were able to do in those last 2 minutes of each regulation. And shout out to that defense too.
Yeah, I will just say there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this game for the Spartans offensively. Like, as much as they did, and ultimately closed out the game in double overtime, there was just a couple of them where they're gonna have a hard time in the film room tomorrow. And like, there's no way you're gonna beat Boise State on Friday. With the type of plays that they had. So, they got to obviously correct that. And, well, I imagine, they'll be heading straight to Boise after this. I don't know what their travel arrangements are like and, what the itinerary looks like. But, man, that was a pretty, that was pretty alarming if you're a Spartan fan. And, the coaching staff, that's something that they're going to have to address. You and I had a nice little back and forth at the end of the game here. And, I said that SJSU should have fouled on the final shot. I mean, they had the situation perfect, with 3 seconds left and double overtime. They had to set up the shot. I mean, the way the game was going, I thought Collins was going to make the 3. I was all like, this thing's got triple overtime, like Georgia Tech and Clemson tonight. like seriously. And, it was one of those things, like, it's one of those situations, right? Like, if you have the ball, with the chance to win the game, and the coach, does he decide to call the timeout or not, right? Yeah. It's one of those situations where if you get the stop, you're glad you didn't foul. But if they make the 3 and you lose the game, or you're playing another 5 minutes or however long, then you're having a different conversation with yourself. So I personally would have gone the strategy of, just foul. Fresno missed like 5 or like 3 free throws. Yeah. It seemed like in double overtime, which ultimately came back to hurt them, losing the game by 3, 94-91, the final score. And, I just thought, despite being a double bonus, despite, you getting 2 free throws, I thought that you had, potentially, every chance to, sure, extend the game in a sense. And, you would have had to probably make some free throws the other way. But we already know that the Spartans have made some free throws when it mattered. Josh Aduje had some big makes. I mean, Will McClendon had like 2 of them when, the SJSU was up 1 in double overtime or overtime. I'm losing track of the overtimes and the situations that we had, but there was some situations where San Jose State had to make their free throws, and they did. And they went 12 for 13 at the line. We talked about that. There was some questions after the Air Force game to Coach Miles and the players, like, hey, like, free throws, and you're like, yep, that's something we got to work on, and it's just constant repetition. That's just how the free throw line goes. And when you got Donovan Yap north of a 90% free throw shooter, I mean, Josh has been over, it seems like almost 80%. Will the same way, and that the numbers speak for themselves in situations like that. This crowd got pretty rowdy for when they got to the free throw line. I imagine it wasn't like Viejas Arena, but like that they were in a week ago today. But still, that the fact that they made some free throws and extended the game and put themselves in a better situation was definitely a green flag on that end that they were trying to clean up. I want to get your thoughts on just kind of the quote unquote revenge game angle from Donovan Yap, Jonathan, because we won't sugarcoat it here. I mean, he had 13 points, 5 for 12 shooting, but he you won't get this anywhere else. But we'll just tell you folks that Yap had himself a good one-on-one going with the fan right in front of us here, sitting courtside. So he was back on defense, and just a friendly back and forth. It was nothing crazy, but that Yap coming back to his old stomping grounds. He played here for a couple of years. It was his first time back. So obviously a big game for him. I think we set the story straight on that, to start before we got things going here in Fresno, Jonathan. But he hit some. He had 2 threes, but I thought the 2 that he hit were kind of the type of threes where, to ultimately stop the field goal droughts. I think he had one late in the second half where I was like, yeah, okay. Like, and the thing about Yap and his three, sometimes he'll take them in rhythm, but the coaching staff trusts him enough, to make those off the dribble, or even if it's early in the shot clock, they trust his 3-point shot to go. I mean, 2 for 7 from that area, 13 points from Donovan Yap. Just overall in the return game for Yap Jr., what did you think of his performance?
No, I thought he was composed and calm, and a whole different Yap from what I seen in the beginning of just this year in general when we opened up against the Leathernecks, just before conference started, and all of a sudden he started to find his groove, and right at the right time, I think around Wyoming, he's been starting to find his groove, and it's been kind of bleeding into this game now, and maybe the points and the scoreboard don't reflect it, but 13 points, 5 or 12 is nothing to laugh at. And there were some points besides the three pointers where he wasn't afraid to drive in. I wanted these guys to drive in a whole lot more because it seemed like they had lanes. And Donovan Yap and Latrell were trying. And shout out to Donovan Yap for being able to still kind of stick to that game plan. And yeah, there was that banter kind of going back and forth. And I'm glad kind of Yap said something back. Not gonna lie, I like that back and forth, that rivalry. That kind of adds to the element. And hey, at the end of the day, it didn't let him affect his game. He still went out there, he did his thing, and that's what a ball player is supposed to do, especially when you're coming back to your old stomping ground. So shout out to him. And one thing I just want to add, I mean, he played a lot of these guys played a career high in minutes today, and Yap in one of them before is 37, and now it's 40 minutes for Donovan Yap. A lot of the Latrell Davis 48 minutes, like NBA type of minutes all of a sudden, and just one of those things that we talked about before was fatigue playing a factor. San Diego State, I thought it was like one of those things where it played a big factor. Maybe they had that conversation, who knows, in practice or something like that. But in this game, if they would have lost this game, Nick, I would have said that it wasn't because of fatigue. It would have just because they got simply outplayed, by Fresno State and what they were bringing out here.
Themselves as well.
Yeah, for sure. A whole bunch of bad luck on it. So, shout out to these guys for being able to do this in crunch time, because that's kind of what I want to see from you from now on. You were supposed to this was supposed to be a close game, but at the same time, you were the favorite here coming into Save Mart Center in enemy territory with some guys coming back. So, for Donovan Yap to see his brother, like Robert Viola, get fouled out, only 19 minutes from Robert Viola. And so he had to step up, and Vasquez, I'm glad he got to get a 5 minutes in. He got a 3-pointer in and started doing some jawing back and forth too. So, Donovan Yap and Vasquez, they're dogs to this team, man, that, maybe Spartans fans didn't know that they needed, but man, they're here. And I tell you what, man, Will, Latrell, Josh, they're happy to have him. And I know Latrell and Josh combined for 60 points, but Donovan Yap and Vasquez, just that angle coming in here and playing angry, I felt it from here, and I'm sure the fans over here at Save Mart felt it. So, shout out to them for being able to stay composed in enemy territory and stick to their guns, and came out with the win.
Well, I imagine I imagine Steven Vasquez will have a joke for the team like, hey, my three was the ultimate decider to the game because the Spartans won by 3, right? I could totally see that from Steven, just the way, just the way you hear Josh and, his antics. I mean, could we talk? Here's another, just a Hall of Fame wacky play to this game, one of the many, but, the technical foul on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and again, we didn't get the craziest angle. We didn't get to hear. I mean, Coach Miles got the word from maybe, Kelly Pfeiffer, our head official tonight, what he said. And, Tim Miles immediately went and addressed in the direction of Steven Vasquez and Day Hall. They were sitting right next to each other on the bench, which, by the way, the Day Hall's, I guess, situation thankfully didn't come to hurt them tonight, right? I mean, the fact that, he's starting 4-man, but that's a guy that, at 6'8" tall, that's a guy that plays way above his size, I would say. That's a guy where, on a 7-footer, he could go down in the post and get a bucket. And, sometimes, you got to work with what you got. I mean, you talked about the 5-guard lineup. I mean, I think that just sums up the night. The fact that, SJSU had to close out the game with 5 guards, on the floor with Jermaine Washington. I mean, you could designate probably Josh Aduje as your quote unquote center, for how the game ended. Alex Crawford, I mean, six points, 3 for 16 shooting. I mean, he had a bunch of open looks, and I'll tell you what, Jonathan, you could give the game ball to Josh Aduje. You could give it to Latrell Davis, Will McClendon, but Joel Mariel deserves some praise, I feel like, coming off the bench. I know you talked about it, a career high 31 minutes. I mean, folks, this is a guy, Joel Mariel, off the bench. He's had himself, a rough patch, in his career. Hasn't gone on the floor much. Transferred from Oregon State, was, somewhat productive there. And, comes over to SJSU, wanting to play some quality minutes. Obviously, Rob Viola is the frontline man in this, the Spartan squad this year. But Chol, it's getting to the point, especially with the Sada Nganga injury, where he's going to have to come and provide however much is necessary. And tonight, 31 minutes was necessary because of the Viola foul trouble. And Jonathan, you said it a bunch. Like, you knew the second at the 3-minute mark of regulation, when Viola came back in, you're like, yep, they're going straight to him like any team should, right? You're gonna go foul out the big man. And Chol, how many blocks did he have on the night? I mean, we know he fouled out. He had 4.6 rebounds. That's not gonna jump off the page, but I mean, I think he had like 2 blocks in this game, and it felt like more. Like, he altered, I would say, about 6 shots. He made it so difficult. Just made the driving lanes a little bit more difficult. And I mean, heck, the Fresno fans were even taunting him. And I'll tell you what, if you're getting taunted, then you're doing something right. So, I thought Chol played probably, even though it might not jump off the stat sheet, but based on his impact and what the SJSU needed, his best game of in a Spartan uniform. So credit to him as well. As far as just SJSU, just in this game as a whole, I mean, the storylines coming in. Tim Miles is finally he's got the win in Fresno. I mean, we know how the game ended last year on an Isaiah Hill 3, and San Jose State bombed 17 threes. They came close tonight, hit 14 on the right side of it in double overtime. And Jonathan, I mean, it's just one of those things, like, college hoops and the rivalry game always delivers. You got to throw the records out the window. You got to, you just don't know what's going to happen in these type of games. And, SJSU came up on top. The Save Mart Center wasn't insane tonight. I will say that. I mean, just to put it in perspective, I mean, the numbers and the attendance of this place are, I would say, pretty reflective of the event center. That's just no knock. I mean, that's just simply, that's just simply the numbers. So, I mean, Fresno State, it's been a brutal year, but even when when they had Justin Hudson and more competitive teams, this has not been a place where they've packed the crowd all too much. Obviously, I mean, it's football first, and it's baseball second, and then it's basketball third, and everything else. But I mean, you would expect for how big this place is, and obviously they feed a bunch of they got a bunch of concerts in here, and some the people that have won Grammys come in here. But I would expect a little bit more from this crowd, because you got yourself a rebuilding team here with first year head coach Vance Wahlberg, and you got a bunch of youth on this team, but still for the passionate fan base that Fresno State is, I was expecting a little bit more, despite the rebuild year. But what, it is what it is. But for San Jose State, Jonathan, they got Boise State on Friday. Obviously, they got to correct a whole lot of things. The game plan is much different. The game, what was it, over a month ago now, the game that SJSU almost won, they played the same game last year versus Boise State in San Jose, where they controlled the game, let it go late. But now it's completely different circumstance in Boise at Extra Mile Arena. I think you got yourself. I haven't checked the Boise State score versus UNLV yet. I saw that they were up a few possessions in the second half, but that's a revitalized group right now. I mean, they've been pissed off the past couple weeks, but this is, I think you're going to see the Boise State Broncos start to peak at the right time. Boise State, thanks, Jonathan, victorious 71-62 against the UNLV running Rebels. So, I mean, obviously you're gonna have the whole Alvaro Cardenas, factor to it. I mean, I think it won't be as big as it was, and when his return came to San Jose, but still, he's playing the Spartans again. Omar Stanley has came along a little bit better there, and Tyson Degenhart is still a tier 1 talent. I mean, just what do you want to see from San Jose State, Jonathan, that they need to correct against a Boise State group that is obviously much more physical than them, much more bigger than them, and, a little bit more hungrier than, I would say, game 1, game 2 of the conference slate?
Yeah, after the game against Air Force, I asked Josh what they can do to improve their rebounding, and he kind of said just intensity, just start to pick up, the loose ball, stuff like that. In this game, they still got out rebounded by a shorter team too in Fresno State. So Elijah Price had a lot to do with that, but other than that, it was Zion Collins, 8 rebounds, Weaver 6 rebounds, Crawford 6 rebounds. 3 other guards I just mentioned there. So. One of the things I want to see, you got Tyson Degenhart, Omar Stanley, some of the best big men in the Mountain West today. Omar Stanley off the bench, 10 points, all of slowly but surely getting himself out of that doghouse. He's been struggling all year. So for Robert Viola, I think this is his get-back game here. He didn't do it against his former team in Fresno State. That's fine. But you were able to perform and have a great game when Boise came to San Jose. You were able to, maybe you didn't go point for point with Tyson Degenhart, but you made him uncomfortable, and that's what you're supposed to do in Boise. So what I want to see is, just get even with that rebounding. You lost the rebounding battle the last 2 games now. You lost it to Air Force by 7. You lose it to Fresno State by 8. Thankfully, those didn't come back to bite you. And this game against Boise, in Boise, it will come back to bite you because you have some of the most elite big men in the conference, specifically with Tyson Degenhart. And you're going to have Alvaro Cardenas dishing it to him as much as he can. So I just want the big men here, Chol Mariel and Robert Viola to, I'm not saying to be less aggressive, but just to be a lot more smarter, because there was a lot of a couple of those fouls that Robert Viola fell for. They were on pump fakes. He just felt caught a little too early. And I thought he struggled a lot in this game just with the pace of it. And that's not something I'm used to seeing from Robert Viola in the last couple of years covering him. So I think this is going to be his get-back game. And, I don't expect him to win the game, just to be flat out honest, but I do expect a close one, and I want the rebounding battle to stay close. I'm going to keep preaching that because I just think rebounding wins games. It hasn't been the case here for San Jose State, but that's because they dealt with the literal bottom 2 teams in the Mountain West, and this isn't a team now that's going to be bottom 2. They're top 3 here. They just got to win on the road in Vegas, just like you did, and you're going to be dealing with a crowd, with all due respect, that's a lot more bigger than Mart Center and a lot more rowdy than Mart Center. You thought this was rowdy. You thought the back and forth with Yap and a fan here. It's going to be a lot more different in Boise when push comes to shove. So I just want that. Just play smarter, play a lot more disciplined. Don't foul as much in Boise, and try to stay in as much as you can. That's what I want to see. And plus, the most obvious is Day-Day going to be there, and he'll add on to that. So yeah, that's all I want to see. Just rebounding, discipline, and let's make sure Sid Adrian Hall is in there, because if he was in this game, I don't think it would have been as close.
So San Jose State improves back to 500. I mean, for how the season started, 0-3. I mean, this is a team that, even though there's still some, there's some still things that they gotta, work out. They still gotta, address a whole lot of things here, on both sides of the ball. And I think in this game in particular, just worry about, just running their simple base offense in a sense. They got to correct some things. We know that. But this is a group back at, 500. They're 12-12 overall. They're 5-7 in Mountain West. That's currently 8th. And, they're tied for, technically 6th with Nevada and UNLV now. They own the tiebreakers because they lost to both of them on the road. Nevada, Reno, and UNLV still come to San Jose. So those will be some big ones at the event center. But, San Jose State, I think we've said this all year long, Jonathan, where they're going to be feisty at home and they're going to be a whole lot more competitive on the road, in spots than what, maybe Spartan fans and, folks around the Mountain West that covered the Mountain West, saw last year. And, you're seeing it. This is not a game that they win a year ago, even, in a sense 2 years ago, because they didn't win it when they had, their best team, with the Mountain West Player of the Year in Amari Moore. But this is still a group that has new pieces from last year to this year that are coming in and are flowing within their roles. The Latrell Davis factor of this whole thing with him, coming off the bench, and normally I thought he started out slow a little bit tonight, but the zone that Fresno was playing really worked out for him with his with the corner threes that he was hitting 6 for 11 from that area. So for the Spartans, I mean, when we're made, barring a massive injury or anything like that, if they continue, to play, to bring it every night and bring the energy, I mean, in a neutral site in Las Vegas, and we're still a month away from that, but this is a conversation that needs to be had, in a sense that the Spartans, I think they've gotten a lot of people's respect this year. And I think they're going to continue to gain some more respect from teams around the Mountain West. And I'll tell you what, if you're a team with a bye, and San Jose State happens to win round one of day one of the Mountain West tournament, you got themselves a day with momentum under their belt, and you have yourself a good matchup, which I would say they match up with better with teams this year compared to last year. Obviously, I mean, this is a group that they're coached extremely well with Tim Miles. We know that, and they're going to come out and bring it every night. So I'm very interested to see how this team grows. The day haul out element, it may not seem big, but they need more frontline help. And even though he's 6'8", he's a 6'8" forward. I mean, that's a guy that can play 6'10", on both sides of the ball. So that is something to monitor next time out on Boise State. We'll see if who knows if we'll talk to Coach Miles, heading into to the Boise State matchup. But keep tabs on the injury report, and for Sadadrian Hall, versus Boise State. But Jonathan, I just want to get your thoughts on where the Spartans are at right now. Tied for sixth, technically eighth in the Mountain West right now, but this is a group playing a whole lot better than last year. We know that, and I think has given some teams a run for their money. And the New Mexico game this year, ironically enough, is still the only conference loss for the Lobos. And this is a team right now that is I mean, we'll see if they peak at the right time here, but compared to, like I said earlier, to the season opener versus Western Illinois, this is a team that has taken some massive strides, and like I said, a team you don't want to draw in the Mountain West tournament in any round for that matter.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think Mountain West teams are no longer going to be caught by surprise by the SJSU Spartans. They're going to be preparing for them, with their X factor like Latrell Davis, Josh Adouche. I think they know what they're all about and who the threats are when it comes to San Jose State. And I think they've kind of separated themselves from teams like, Wyoming, obviously Fresno. And we're going to learn a lot about them on Tuesday, on February 11th, when San Diego State rolls into town at 8 p.m. I do have the Boise State game. As long as you can stick to your game and kind of stay close to it, I do have that game kind of chalked up as a loss. And I only say that to say I feel like we're going to learn about where these guys are going to be in the standings when San Diego State rolls into town. We all saw what happened when they went to Viejas Arena, barely lost by possession. They had a 21-point lead. It took one of the most historic comebacks in San Diego State history, quite literally, for them to come back and get back into this game. So I want to hold off and see what they can do there, because if they can pull that win off, remember, they're the only team who has beat New Mexico in this conference so far. So if they can do that against San Diego State, I think that this team, it's not just about maybe being that team that catches a team that has a bye by surprise. Maybe they can work their way into that bye. Like you said, you got UNLV, Nevada coming. If you could beat San Diego State, I think you can beat UNLV and Nevada too. And that's the only reason I say that. If you can separate yourself from the pack, no pun intended, I think you can start to get into that era, that dwell of when they went 10-8 in conference play in 2022. And Tim Miles, and we said it on Weekly and a whole bunch of other publications that said it, that the 8 wins is the goal for them in conference play. I think that's alive and well still, but I want to wait for San Diego State, because that's going to tell me if they can beat UNLV and Nevada. And those are the 3 teams right there that I think are right in the middle for the Mountain West: UNLV, Nevada, and San Jose State. And I want to see if San Jose State is better than them. On paper, I want to say yes. In my heart, I want to say yes, but I got to see how this plays out. UNLV kind of seems like they're on a downward spiral, and so does Nevada, but it doesn't mean they're better than San Jose State, whether we like it or not. So I want to see what San Jose State can bring with these two elite teams coming, with one on the road and one San Diego State. And yeah, we'll see where they are after that. If they're above 500, Nick, then it looks like, Mountain West is going to be in for a little Cinderella run, and I'm not even being dramatic about it.
Bold statement there from Jonathan Conness. So, yeah, we got San Jose State and Boise State Friday in Boise, Idaho. And then the Spartans, their next home game, probably one of their bigger home games all year long versus the San Diego State Aztecs. And they'll most certainly be playing with revenge in their home building on a Tuesday night, prime time Mountain West after dark showdown in the Bay Area. So, once again, that will do it for us here in Fresno. We're going to now make the 2-hour and 45-minute drive, back to San Jose, up and down the Pacheco Pass. So that should be a whole lot of fun. But, hey, the game delivered. San Jose State defeats the Fresno State Bulldogs 94-91 in double overtime. I imagine we'll have a whole lot more on this game. I imagine I will most certainly be rewatching it. Jonathan will be rewatching it. We'll have a whole lot more, analysis on this one. Over analysis leads to paralysis. But hey, I mean, this game. Hey, if you didn't catch this game live, folks, I mean, go rewatch it, because this was one of the more crazier gong show Mountain West games that you'll probably have all year, just from, the improbability. I mean, I'd like to check the ESPN, win probability when the Spartans were down 7 in regulation. It was probably less than 1%, but yeah, it was one of the more crazier games out there. And I appreciate it. Shout out to our guy, Ricky Thompson. Good show, guys, out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with the Pit Press. Always appreciate Ricky and all the stuff that he does for the New Mexico Lobos. Good to see you, Ricky, as well, and San Jose. Hope to see you at the Mountain West tournament in March. But that will do it for us here at Fresno. For Jonathan Conness, I'm Nick Urias, signing off from Fresno, California, as repeating the final score for you one more time. San Jose State over Fresno State, 94-91 in double overtime. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.